Dressing up with their tiny ones in a princess outfit is every parent's wish. So why not create a princess dress for your little girl on your own? Perfect for birthdays, family gatherings, and weddings. They will make your tiny one the instant star of the celebration. These adorable one-shoulder dresses also make for great gifts for your friends. We will learn to cut the fabric according to the template. Prepare the main, satin and lining skirt pieces, followed by the yoke, and then finally attach the yoke to the skirt along with the zipper. To get started, you will need 3 meters of fancy skirt fabric with 45 inches width. We have chosen a sequence fabric. 4 meters of white satin fabric with 45 inches width. 4 meters of white lining fabric with 45 inches width. 2.5 meters of cancan. Template for the one-shoulder dress, which you can download from our website www.ushasew.com. Beaded pins, chalk, scissors, measuring tape, matching threads, 8-inch concealed zipper. Usha Janomi zipper foot. Step 1. Template marking and fabric cutting. Let's get started. Choose a colorful and bright fabric for the skirt portion. Completely open it up with the printed side facing you and fold it in half lengthwise, right side facing right. This will be our wrong side. And this is our right side. This is the fold of the fabric. Now place the skirt template downloaded from www.ushasew.com on the fabric. While placing the template, ensure that the side mentioned on fold comes over the fold of the fabric as shown. Now let's pin it in place with some beaded pins. After you are done, use a piece of chalk to trace the pin template onto the fabric. Be extra careful with the curve of the skirt. Once you are done with the marking, unpin the template and keep it aside. Next, use a pair of scissors to cut out the traced template. As you can see, one side of the skirt is on the fold. We'll cut one more piece of the skirt from the main template. We also need to cut 2 pieces from the satin and lining fabric using the lining template. In total, we have 2 pieces each from the lining, the satin and the main fabric. We are done with all the pieces of the skirt. Now moving to the top of the dress. Take the satin fabric and fold it right side facing the right side. Place the template titled Yoke over it. Pin the template to the fabric using some beaded pins. Ensure that the pin goes through both the layers of the fabric. Then take a piece of chalk and trace the template onto the fabric. After you are done, unpin the template and keep it aside. For extra stability, pin the fabric. While cutting, be extra careful on the curved edges. Unpin the yoke and you should have 2 different pieces. The same process will be repeated on the lining fabric so that you have 4 different pieces of the yoke, 2 from the satin fabric and 2 from the lining fabric. Step 2. Preparing the main and satin skirt pieces. Open the main fabric and place the back fabric over the front and match the edges perfectly. The fabrics should be placed right side facing right. We have to sew the side seams as indicated in the video. For the ease of stitching, pin the 2 fabrics together. The same process will be repeated on the other side. Match the edges and pin them in place. But before we sew, we have to create a mark from the top measuring 2.5 inches for the zipper. We'll start sewing from this mark and leave the top open. Pin at this mark. After you are done, keep the main fabric aside and repeat the same process over the satin fabric. Mark the 2.5 inch zipper gap and pin at the mark. We'll be sewing the side seams and finishing the bottom hem. Bring the pinned fabrics to your Usha Janomi MyFab Barbie sewing machine. We'll start with the main fabric. Align the edge of the fabric with the presser foot and begin sewing. Start with a few reverse stitches and slowly and steadily make your way towards the top of the skirt. Stop at the 2.5 inch mark, which we have left for the zipper. Before stopping, do a couple of reverse stitches at the end to secure the straight stitches. Cut the thread and any extra fabric and move to the other side of the main fabric. Stitch the other side completely. Once you are done, keep the main fabric aside and stitch the side seams on the satin fabric. Sew this completely as well and remove the pins as you go. The same process will be repeated on the other side of the satin fabric, but remember to leave 2.5 inch gap at the end from the top, similar to the main fabric. After you are done, turn the pattern selector dial to C for zigzag stitches and the stitch length to 1.5. Begin sewing on the edge. The zigzag stitches will help prevent the fraying of the edges. When we reach the 2.5 inch gap, we will have to do individual stitching on each layer. Stop and cut the thread. Place the top layer under the presser foot and begin sewing. Once done, cut the thread and repeat the zigzag stitches on the other edge of the skirt. Our side seams are done. Let's move on to the bottom hem. As shown in the video, fold the bottom by ½ inch twice. We will be sewing on the fold. Align the fabric under the presser foot. But before you get started, remember to change the settings back to straight stitch by setting the pattern selector dial to A and stitch length to 2.5. Begin sewing. Keep folding as you make your way around the bottom. After you are done, cut the thread. Your final stitches should look like this. Similarly, we will work on the bottom hem of the main fabric. Fold the fabric by ½ inch twice from the bottom and sew over the fold. As the fabric is delicate, gently fold as you go. As you can see, we've stitched the side seams on the satin fabric and also hemmed the bottom. Even on the main fabric, we've stitched the sides and hemmed the bottom. Step 3. Preparing the lining fabric along the cancan. Let's now work on the lining fabric. You should have 2 pieces of the lining, one for the front, one for the back. But for now, we will work on one. Bring out the 2.5 meters of cancan. Fold it in half and cut it. Keep one half aside and fold the other half into half. We'll be attaching it to the lining fabric. But before that, from the top of the lining fabric, mark 4 inches. Do this all across the waistline of the skirt piece. Open the lining fabric and continue marking 4 inches as shown in the video. After you are done, bring out the cancan fabric, which should be 1 1/4 meters, and fold it in half. Pin the cancan fabric to the lining fabric on the 4-inch marks as shown in the video. Keep creating pleats on the cancan as you pin it to the fabric. The size of the pleats will be 3/4 inches. Once you reach the center of the fabric, go to the other end and restart the process from there so that the pleats can be adjusted in the center. Your pleats should look like this after pinning. The same process will be repeated on the other piece of the lining fabric as well. Once the other piece is ready, we'll be joining the 2 lining pieces together. Lay the 2 fabrics over each other, right side facing right. Time to sew the side seams and hem the bottom. Take the pinned fabrics to the sewing machine. Let's work with 1 lining fabric and begin sewing. Gently sew the pleats and keep removing the pins as you go. This process can be a bit tricky, and mind your fingers while sewing to avoid any injuries. Repeat the same process on the other fabric. The final pleats should look like this. Now align the side seams of both the fabrics. Align the fabrics under the presser foot and begin sewing. Start from the waist and go till the bottom. Once done, cut the thread. On the other side, remember to leave 2.5 inches from the top for the zipper and begin sewing. Don't forget reverse stitches at the start and at the end to secure your stitches. After you are done, let's move to the bottom. Like before, fold the fabric by 1/2 inch twice. Adjust the fabric under the presser foot and sew over the fold. Go all around the fabric and keep folding as you go. As you can see, we've attached the cancan to the lining fabric and stitched the side seams. Step 4. Preparing the yoke. We will now work on the top portion of the one-shoulder dress. We have the satin fabric and the lining fabric ready. Now let's attach the pieces by sewing over the shoulders. Place the front of the lining fabric on the back piece, right side facing right. Pin the shoulder of the lining fabrics together. Then pin the main fabrics together. Take the pinned fabrics to your sewing machine. Align the edge of the shoulder of the satin fabric with the presser foot and begin sewing. Don't forget the reverse stitches. After you are done, cut the thread and sew the shoulders of the lining fabric as well. As you can see, we've stitched the shoulders of the lining as well as the main fabric. Now, open the fabrics and lay the lining fabric over the satin one, right side facing the right. We have to now stitch the armhole, neckline, and side seam. Let's start with the armhole first. Align the fabric with the presser foot and begin sewing. Next, work on the neckline. Once complete, create notches on the circular sections, which are the armhole as well as the neckline, so that the fabric sits well when worn. Be careful not to cut the stitches. Once done, turn the fabric inside out from the bottom. And gently press along the curved seams. Now we will do a top stitch on the neckline and armhole section as well. We need to stitch only one side seam as of now. Your final stitches should look like this. We still have to sew the other side seam, but before that, we will attach the skirt to the yoke. Step 5. Attaching the yoke to the skirt. Keep the yoke aside for now as we prep the skirt. Keep the lining fabric on the table as shown in the video. Place the satin fabric over it, followed by the main fabric. Align the fabrics and pin the waist of all the fabrics with some beaded pins. After pinning, lay them flat on the table. As you can see, we have the opening for the zipper. Next, take the yoke piece. We will be pinning the waistline of the yoke to the waistline of the skirt. Right side facing right side. Pin all around the waist. Ensure that the pins go through all the layers of the fabric. We will also have to attach our zipper at the opening. Take all the pieces to your sewing machine. Align all the skirt pieces with the yoke and begin sewing. Don't forget reverse stitches at the start and the end. Make sure all the fabric pieces are getting stitched together with the yoke. After you are done with straight stitches, do a round of zigzag stitches for a neater finish. Set the pattern selector dial to C and stitch length to 1.5 and begin sewing. Reverse stitches are not required during zigzag stitches. Once complete, your final stitches should look like this. Now to attach the zip, place the right side of the zip on the right side of the fabric and pin it in place on the unstitched side. To stitch the zipper to the dress, replace the regular presser foot of your Usha Janome MyFab Barbie sewing machine with a zipper foot. Reset the pattern selector dial to A for straight stitches and stitch length to 2.5. Open the zipper and sew one side of the zipper on one side of the dress. Once we are done with this, turn the fabric inside out and stitch the second side of the zipper to the other opening, right side facing right. The zip is now stitched to the dress. Additionally, we will do a round of stitches in the groove of the zipper T on both sides. The final stitches should look like this, but we aren't done yet. To complete the last step, replace the zipper foot with the regular foot. Set the machine to zigzag stitches. Once again, sew over the zipper to attach it firmly to the lining fabric. Sew on both sides of the zipper. And we are done. As you can see, we've attached the yoke to the skirt, along with the zip. You can embellish the dress in any way you wish. We're attaching a cute flower brooch on the sleeve, along with a beautiful lace piece at the waist. Your little girl will truly feel like a princess in this sparkly pink dress with matching accessories. Let us know in the comments below how you liked this video and what else you'd like to see.